the freezing of seawater. So in fact there's vastly more sea ice in the world than there are icebergs, even though the sea ice is much thinner, maybe only gets to be 3 meters thick after several years of growth, while an iceberg might be 300. But it covers the whole of the ocean, the whole of the Arctic Ocean and a large part of the Antarctic Ocean. So there's much more of it, or at least there was. But now it's shrunk back from filling the Arctic Ocean, and it now is only filling about half the Arctic Ocean. So we now have real open water in the summer, which is, in a way, psychologically, it's separating North America from Asia in a way that we weren't separated before. And the area is shrinking very fast in summer, and we expect that it might shrink to zero within less than 5 years, a very short time. We'll be seeing a period of ice-free Arctic just for a month or two in the summer.
I can imagine that from the standpoint of, I don't know, maybe polar bears, this decrease in the amount of sea ice is a serious matter. But on the positive side, I mean, some people would point out, look, if you're shipping something from China to Europe, this would allow you to, have a northwest passage. That's a good thing.
Yes, there's a couple of advantages. One is Arctic shipping. You ultimately will be able to sail straight across the Arctic Ocean, so you can get from the Far East to the west coast of North America or to Europe very much more rapidly than you can now. But the advantages, the economic advantages of that are far more than offset by the economic costs of the climate change impact that the retreat has. I mean, it will speed up the warming of the whole planet because it's replacing a white surface by a dark surface, that's the open water, which means that much more radiation is absorbed in the summer and the planet warms up more quickly. It also, because the planet's warming up more quickly, especially in the Arctic, the Greenland ice sheet is melting more rapidly, and the Greenland ice sheet is the biggest contributor to sea level rise. So we'll find sea level rise accelerating as well. And then, of course, there's this effect, as the ice retreats, the open water that remains warms up, and that melts the permafrost along the coastal regions and gives you an extra methane release, which will speed up global warming again. So the sea ice retreat, which people think of as just a kind of response to global warming, actually itself causes more global warming and other effects like sea level rise. So it is a pretty dire thing to be happening.
What you've described there is, just a positive feedback system. So you melt some ice, you reduce the amount of reflected sunlight, and that causes more ice to melt and so forth. Does this process just run away at some point with all the ice at the poles turning to liquid water?
Well, it almost does, yes. I mean, a real runaway climate change would be something like happened on Venus and turned Venus into a dead planet because all the water evaporated. But this is a sort of semi-runaway in that already we're finding that the retreat of sea ice plus the retreat of the snow line in the northern hemisphere, that's moving backwards as well. That's equivalent to adding 50% to the amount of carbon dioxide that we're releasing into the atmosphere. So the direct warming of the planet caused by burning fossil fuels and so on, where every 2 molecules of carbon dioxide that we stick into the atmosphere to cause global warming, we're getting another one free, another extra 50% of global warming free, which is the feedback effects of the sea ice retreat that's caused by the direct global warming.
Just on a personal note, you've been studying Arctic sea ice for quite a while, and you've used submarines many times to do that. Can you just describe for me what it's like to study the sea ice from a submarine? I mean, looking up there, what do you see?
Well, it's the best way of doing it because it's very difficult. You can measure the area of sea ice easily with satellites because you can see the ice. But the thickness you can't measure except by going underneath and then looking up with a submarine. So with a submarine, you sail underneath, you use an echo sounder to look upwards, or nowadays you use a multi-beam sounder, which gives you actually a picture of the bottom of the ice. And as you cross the Arctic, that shows you how much ice there is, what the average thickness is, what the maximum thickness is. All the parameters you want to know about the thickness you get from a submarine. So all you have to do is to not feel claustrophobic in a submarine, and you can collect data very effectively. but it's not really as safe as it looks. You're on a submarine, you think you're very safe, but in fact, I think the closest I came to death in 47 years of sea ice research was actually shirt sleeves in a submarine rather than wrestling with a polar bear or anything like that.
Sounds like you're not about to become a dive junkie. Peter,
no, no, I think not.
Peter, you write that the Paris Accord falls short if we're to preserve the world's cold places, and specifically the sea ice we've been talking about. How so? How does it fall short?
Well, firstly, there's a very positive thing about the Paris Accord, at least there was until the declaration by Trump, because it was the first time that every country in the world agreed that the biggest enemy we're fighting is climate change, that we actually have to take this very seriously, and that every country should develop plans for reducing its carbon emissions and switching to renewables and trying to reduce the level of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere to the point where global temperatures won't rise beyond 2 degrees. So that's the positive thing. And the inadequacy, I think, was that the targets that different countries presented, how much they were going to reduce their emissions, were not adequate to keep the warming within 2 degrees. But even with the inadequacy, I think is because, firstly, those reduction targets are not good enough, but there are mechanisms for them to be improved, so it's good that they exist, but it still won't be enough. And in my view, we have to do more than just reduce carbon emissions. We have to find positive ways of taking carbon out of the atmosphere. So I would advocate a kind of Manhattan Project for finding ways of direct air capture of carbon dioxide. That is, you run air through some machine which takes the carbon dioxide out and puts it somewhere else. And these kind of systems do exist, but at the moment they're much too expensive. But we need to find ways of making that sort of process economically viable, and then that will be, in the end, what will save the world, because it's global change due to carbon dioxide that's the big enemy. If we can get rid of the carbon dioxide, we've got rid of global change. So I'm very strongly in favour of research and development on direct air capture of carbon dioxide. That, I think, should be the biggest research program that the world is undertaking. It shouldn't be a minor thing, but a major thing.
Peter.
Well, good evening. Good evening, good evening, good evening, Jennifer. And let me pop your name by you. How is everybody out there? I see we've got quite a bit, quite a good audience. And Jennifer, that was really absolutely super cool that you were on there during the video that I put together. Did everybody like that? I hope so.
It was a great video. I loved it.
Oh, good, good, good. I used, I also have to say, Jim McHenry, I used some of his pictures that he had on his Facebook, so I didn't attribute him, but I did attribute Going South. And we got a lot of shares going in, so this is great. Welcome, Facebook, and welcome, YouTube. This is amazing. And Jennifer, so what's been going on? I'd like to start with our little chit chat.
It's just like every single thing in the news is getting hotter and hotter, and there's so much stuff that's breaking loose right now. And we're going to cover a few things tonight that are pretty darned interesting. Most people on this call are kind of like Arctic sea ice watchers. And there's one where from Sam Carana, and it just came out August 5th, so last week. And it says North Pole 2020. Will there be open water at the North Pole in August of 2020? So that's pretty intense.
Yeah, it's pretty intense.
Then into the biological effects of Arctic ocean acidification. I guess none of us are surprised to know that the Arctic Ocean acidification is worse than expected. So This is an article that just came out last month or month and a half ago in phys.org, and I wanted to bring it in because it shows what the effect of, what are the factors in ocean acidification in the Arctic. And the fact that methane acidifies the water as it absorbs into it, that small thing.
Well, we got a good show. I think we're
yeah.
We're off to a good start, although, albeit for me it was like the last minute Lucy here. The shower, the running out to turn on the water system for my garden. It's been very dry, and I feel like my life is completely surrounded by Japanese beetles and garden slugs and watering and irrigation and trimming plants. And I mean, it's like, and then you should see the inside of the house because the outside is being paid attention to, but the inside, forget it. You got to send me some pictures of your flowers this year, Jennifer. I know you have beautiful flowers.
Oh, I love my garden. Yeah. I really, really, that's the one refuge I have, and I have used every single bit of earth. When I first got this house, it was new construction, and it didn't have anything but like this hard clay. So the first thing I did was got a dump truck full of goose compost, and I tilled it into the earth because I really wanted to make it fertile. It was really important to me.
Yeah, well, that's what the compost is, and I know we're going off topic, but guys, we talk about what we talk about, but very rarely Jennifer doesn't talk about her gardening skills, and she's got an amazing, beautiful paradise where she is. So it's nice because we're real people. Hey, Trish wants to know, Jennifer, where's your kitty cat?
Oh, well, she's probably upstairs right now. She is such a dolly. I am so pleased with this little kitty cat. And she's not like any cat I've ever seen. She doesn't have a tail. She's a Manx. And she kind of has like some sort of dog-like behaviors as well. So it's very, she's just a dolly. So thank you, Trish, for bringing it up. And her name is Amelia. So maybe she'll come back and meet you all again soon.
Well, Rich Diana said we got the same wallpaper. Cool. Yeah, Jennifer picked the graphic out for tonight. And it is cool. It really is cool. And we're going to get better. Jennifer's going to be getting her mic, and we have some professional people out there like Snork and Osama that are going to help us even set up better. And maybe I can figure out about the internet, but this is housekeeping. I've been on other people's live streams, and believe it or not, it's not just us that has problems. It is a lot of people because so many people are on that the big carriers slow you down. And I was on something last night where he had too many people, so he didn't have enough bandwidth. So all it was avatars. And every time somebody talked, it was like going like this, like this, like this. So, and then there's a progressive talker, Graham Elwood. I happened to go on to one of his shows, and he was having horrible problems. And then I watched Jordan Sheraton on, no, maybe that was the same show. It was Graham's. But it's not just us. It is all over. So when I complain about a lousy upload speed, whatever, I think that we're not alone, Jennifer. But we're going to be updating our stuff. And you know what? We do this ourselves. And so, it takes a little time. But Jen will get her mic, and then I'll teach her how. And we'll be doing, well, it only took me 40 tries. I mean, every video I'm worried about the audio. The other day, Jennifer, I sounded like a shrieking, what do they call them in the old, a fishwife. I mean, it was like banshee? Every time banshee. I got loud, but it wasn't the last video. It was the one before, night and day, because I think I hope I figured out. Well, anyway, now that we've done our little, Sunday night banter, which is nice, and everybody's joined us. We've got a nice crowd on on Facebook. Thank you all, and we're building a nice crowd on YouTube. Although I don't know where everybody is on a Sunday night. They know we're on, or maybe they just get burned out. But we're still here. And Jen, I'm going to give you the first one, the Arctic news, and let me just make sure I fix it so everybody can see it properly.
Yeah. So,
all right.
So when we do this one, just follow along with the charts because I'm going to talk about each one of these charts. This is an article that just came out in the Arctic News, August 5th, 2020, North Pole 2020. Will there be open water at the North Pole in August of 2020? We are in August of 2020.
We are.
So the first graphic, so that's the one with the two side by side.
Yeah, I actually have it, Jennifer. I made it into a big graphic, and it's taking up the whole screen.
Oh, did you?
Mm-hmm. I got it.
Okay,
I
cool. So the first,
I got to get rid of us.
So this is.
Okay, go ahead.
So this is like a side-by-side comparison, August 4th and August 9th. And it's kind of one of those pictures, you know, you kind of look at both of them and you kind of see what's changed about each one of them. Mm-hmm. And the most notable thing about this side-by-side comparison is that the North Pole is actually getting hotter over these like 5 days. There's a lot of much warmer air because this is sea surface temperature, actual surface temperature. So what's notable, because there's been a lot of talk this last week about is there going to be ice-free North Pole. Now that doesn't mean we're going to have a blue ocean event, but it does mean that for the very first time the North Pole would be ice-free. So this is like some kind of preamble. You can see that hotter air is getting into the North Pole. And then just like overall, Sandy, if you could go down to the next picture, that's the one with the graphic with the blue over on the left-hand side and the red over.
I lost
So this is a 12-month.
Just really lost. Okay. All right. There we are. All right. Let me get back.
This is a.
Wait a minute. I've never done that before, so I have to add us back.
Let me talk.
Yes. Talk.
Let me talk. Let me talk. So this is a 12-month global surface air temperature anomaly. So anomaly immediately means how far we are out of whack, right? So you can see this particular graph runs from 1980 to 2020, so 40 years, guys. So in the last 40 years, you can see how much hotter it's gotten in general around the Earth. And then the European surface air temperature anomaly, the last one was global, right? So just specifically in Europe, the story is exactly the same. It is getting warmer and warmer quickly. Mm-hmm. So, there's been a lot of action in the Facebook groups these last few days about, is the Arctic going to be ice-free? And specifically at the North Pole. We're not talking anywhere else right now. And from everything that we're looking at, it sure does look like the North Pole might get pretty darn clear to ice-free. Sandy, if you could scroll down to the GIF animation, it's ice thickness, and it moves.
All right. Well, I'm having problems getting both of our little faces back on here like we used to have. So if you give me a second.
Oh, that's okay. We don't need to see our faces.
All right. Well, it's just technical, and I'm absolutely not sure. Crop split screen. I'm not sure how to work it to make it work. So you want to go down to the
I want
Outlook.
you to go down to the GIF inside the Arctic News blog spot, the one that is the ice thickness.
Okay. The
And it's moving.
SST. Oh, that one. Okay, that goes all the way down. Ice thickness. That's a nice one. Yeah, I can make that bigger.
Yeah.
That definitely looks
Just
nice.
kind of sit there for a while and let people look at it. And do be sure that the date range is showing at the top. It goes from 2027, let's see, 7/14 to 8/07. So this is basically like a 3-week range, guys. And this is the sea ice thickness shriveling away before your very eyes. And this is something historic that you're looking at here. And you have to just keep looking at it and understand that there's not much ice over 1 meter. So the kind of lavender color, that's 1 meter. The darker blue, that's 1.5 meter. The brighter blue is 2 meters. So there's not much ice left. You can see there's just a little core around the Canadian archipelago. And the rest is shriveling away as fast as can be. And it's a pretty amazing thing to see. You know, the Arctic, as we know, we've been focusing on it all summer. It's gotten much hotter, and it's just amazing when you have heat plus ice equals water, and that's kind of what we're seeing. So this is a great bunch of graphs to take a look at, guys. We're not going to spend too much time on it, but be sure to take a look at this link in the Arctic News blog spot, as it's pretty stunning. The Arctic sea ice is shriveling away due to heat. Oh, and the Arctic cyclone at the end of July and at the very beginning of August, it ripped across from the Beaufort Sea all along, and it ripped up the ice. And so that's when you look at these Arctic sea ice GIFs, right? It basically is shriveling all over the place, but you can see where the cyclone, the hurricane, actually broke up the ice when it ripped across. That's all the Beaufort is completely busted up at this point, and it's just kind of melting. I'm melting.
Wow.
I'm melting.
So where do we want to go? Down to the next graph.
All right. You want to do the next one, Sandy? It's the Arctic Ocean acidification worse than expected. It's in phys.org, and it's about the poor little animals.
Yep, I'm going to do that, and that is, oh yes. I don't know how to keep us up there while we're doing articles anymore.
Oh, that's okay. We don't need to be there.
We lost. Okay, so we're Arctic acidification worse than expected. Let me make sure you see it good. Oh, yeah, looks great. All right. The Arctic Ocean will take up more CO2 over the 21st century than predicted by most climate models. Wow. This additional CO2 causes a distinctly stronger ocean acidification. Whew. These results were published by a study by climate scientists from the University of Bern and École Normale Supérieure in Paris. Ocean acidification threatens the life of calcifying organisms, such as mussels and sea butterflies, and it can have serious consequences for the entire food chain. So the ocean takes up large amounts of man-made CO2 from the atmosphere. This additional CO2 causes ocean acidification. It's a process that I'm sure all of us know can already be observed today. And Antonio talks about that. Jennifer, you talk about it. Ocean acidification particularly impacts organisms that form calcium carbonate skeletons and shells such as the mollusks, sea urchins, starfish, corals. It's the Arctic Ocean is where acidification is expected to be greatest. You know, the Arctic it's just taking that pounding, isn't it? A study recently
Sure
published,
is.
they studied in Nature by now if it's Jans or Jens Terhar from Bern and Lester Kwiatkowski and Laurent Bopp from the École Normale Supérieure in Paris shows ocean acidification in the Arctic Ocean is likely to be even worse than previously thought. I can't make this small enough. The results show that the smallest of the seven seas will take up to 20% more CO2 over the 21st century than previously expected, of course, under the assumption that the atmospheric CO2 will, the concentrations continue to increase. So this leads to sustainability and enhanced ocean acidification. Sustainability enhanced ocean acidification. I had to say that twice. Particularly between 200 and 100 meters, explains Jan Terhar, member of the group for ocean modeling at the Osugar Center for Climate Research at University of Bern. This depth range is an important refuge area for many marine organisms. Now, this little picture, there was just something that came up on it. And see? Oh, look at that. These little tiny sea creatures. You see them? They are called the pedipod or sea butterfly, and they're these tiny little sea creatures about the size of a small pea. And these pteropods are eaten by organisms ranging in size from tiny krill, to whales. And let me see if I can move this up. I'm having a little bit of, I don't know. Anyway, they're like tiny. Oh, here it goes. The pteropod shell dissolved over the course of 45 days in seawater adjusted to an ocean chemistry project for the year 2100. So it was the NOAA. That's pretty cute. Not cute. You know what I mean. This is little things that are in there, and everything is dependent. One thing is dependent on another, right, Jennifer? It's a codependency.
Absolutely.
And this is
Yeah, the main thing about this article, it's absolutely heartbreaking, because what is happening is that billions of these little sea creatures that are out there, in this case, they're looking at these little snails, which are kind of like at the bottom of the food chain, but none of them are able to create their shells. And the shells that they do have in the presence of more acidic water, which is happening right now as the ocean takes up more and more of the CO2, it's causing their shells to dissolve, and
it hurts.
It's pretty darn heartbreaking that all the sea creatures that have calcium shells, calcium carbonate skeletons and shells, all of them are going to experience, I mean, it's a lot harder for them to form their shells, and they depend on their shells for their lives.
Yeah, so if they even procreate, they're going to get eaten before they can procreate, so they'll be extinct. Boom, then another one. Go on.
So
another one bites
what
the dust.
this means is this is an entire food chain that supports fish and marine mammals, and this is going to have repercussions. And this is part of the sixth extinction. I hate to call it great because it's horrible.
Horrible.
It's horrible. And it's just atrocious, really. So every so often, it's good to stop and take a look. What are the effects of ocean acidification? Because they are far-reaching and very, very deep and broad, and it's intense, and also just to know that when the methane comes out of the Arctic, these creatures are
Right.
especially in the Arctic that we're looking at. As the methane comes through the water of the Arctic Ocean, the part of the methane that is absorbed
Right.
it actually acidifies the ocean.
Ugh. It sounds so
So
nasty.
cheerful things.
Yeah, cheerful
Not-
things. I'm playing with
not
our
cheerful
camera scenes
things.
tonight, by the way, just so you know.
Is that right?
Yeah. I'm moving around to the
Okay.
next one, which is the pair of Canadian ice caps. I'm going to let you take that while I figure out how to do what
sure.
and get us back to some technical thing I wanted to be at. That is.
Yeah. Well, there are two things that have just happened in Canada that are of note, right?
Yeah.
So there's a pair of Canadian ice caps, and if you don't mind, I'd kind of like to take both of them because they're both Canadian ice things.
Yes,
So
you can take
the
both
first
of them.
one we're going to talk about is, or we can share it. It's fine, but I just like kind of want to pair them up.
I'm kind of like technical
So
tonight.
the first one is a pair of Canadian ice caps has disappeared completely. This just came out on the 3rd of August.
Yeah.
And that's going to be paired with Canada's last fully intact Arctic ice shelf collapses. So these are both ice things in Canada that are happening that, of course, are unprecedented. So back to the pair of Canadian ice caps has disappeared completely. So I said this came out the 3rd of August in Gizmodo. And, you know, it's pretty intense. A set of polar ice caps. Now, when they say polar ice caps, it's misleading because it's not like it's up on the North Pole, but they're calling them polar ice caps, you know, has literally disappeared. We don't need any more evidence that the Earth is warming to the point of mass instability, but this latest discovery is unsettling, to say the least. Scientists at the National Snow and Ice Data Center, NSIDC, which is actually here in Colorado, said last week that the St. Patrick Bay ice caps in northeastern Ellesmere Island in Nunavut, Canada, are nowhere to be seen. Last seen up there, but nope, they're gone. Nowhere to be seen on satellite imagery. Researchers long suspected that this would be possible, but the prediction has come a bit sooner than expected. Then they go in and they talk about the particulars about this ice cap and how it's kind of a mini glacier and how large it was, which is almost 20,000 square miles. I mean, they weren't small. And in 2017, a team published a paper suggesting that the ice caps would be gone in the next 5 years. Well, it seems like it happened in 3 years. So everything's happening about twice as fast as expected. And they went to look on the satellite and boom, they weren't there. Recent months have been plagued by heat waves and wildfires across the Arctic. This extreme heat likely contributed to the melting of the ice caps. Research has found that summers in the region haven't been this warm in 115 million years.
Wow.
No, 115,000 years. Excuse me.
It's okay.
115,000
115,000, 115 million. It's still a long
Well,
time.
no, it makes a huge difference. It really does.
I know it
but
does.
115,000 years. So, like, that's huge.
Yes.
These
huge.
are two ice caps that feed into Baffin Bay, and they've been suffering for quite some time. One of them, the Barnes ice cap, holds some of the world's most ancient ice. Not anymore. Yet
Wow,
satellite
pictures.
imagery shows how quickly it's been retreating over the last decade. Meanwhile, the St. Patrick Bay ice cap formed only a few centuries ago. So one of them's very, very old, now gone, and one of them's a bit newer, only a couple hundred years old, now gone. So it looks like since 1959 they've been in dramatic retreat, and now they are gone.
Those graphics look like liver from that picture.
Kind of funny, doesn't it?
Yeah, isn't it? Like it was a little. The graphics were a little like disturbing the way they were taken, but who am I
it's
to
so
criticize
strange
a
that you
photographer?
said that, because in my copy, when I scrolled down, it showed this huge picture of a liver.
Oh, no.
You know how they put the ads in, and it says "worried about the liver."
And here we have liver-looking graphics of geography.
Swear to God.
Oh my gosh.
It's too strange.
You know, I cannot figure out how to get us back the way I wanted, and little things like this really bother me, Jennifer. When I can't get something perfect.
Yeah.
Oh, well. So I'm playing all night.
It's very
everybody.
upsetting.
I'm playing all night.
Hey, Sandy.
Yes.
Do you want to do the next one? Canada's last fully intact Arctic ice shelf collapses, and then I'll add a little commentary, or would you like me to take it away?
One? No, we'll do it together. This is a conversation.
This one is NBCnews.
Yeah.
.com.
NBC News.
Yeah.
No, we're gonna tag team this one, baby. All right. Let's go to the. Can we see it? Yep. All right, it's up. Canada's last fully intact Arctic ice shelf collapses. And in that video I made earlier, the second part of the video was footage I filmed that somebody was filming the collapse up there. They were watching the calving. It was, from what I understand, I have to see if I still have the credits written down. Sometimes I lose them in notes. All right, so this was
what I want to emphasize, Sandy, about this article is how quickly this happened. This is no kidding, right? This is 40% of its area collapsed in just 2 days.
2 days,
at the end
48
of July.
hours, I said, right?
Poof.
Poof. Poof. 48 hours. So here's some more spatial pictures. This is the wow, my eyes all of a sudden went little. The Milne, Milne ice shelf is reduced in size by about 43% in combination from the satellite images. Wow. But the last fully one has collapsed, guys, losing more than 40% of its area in just 2 days, just like Jennifer said. Unbelievable. This ice shelf is at the fringe of the Ellesmere Island in the sparsely populated northern Canadian territory of Nunavut. And above normal air temperatures, offshore winds, open water in front of the ice shelf are all part of the recipe for ice shelf breakup, said the Canadian Ice Service on Twitter when it announced the loss on Sunday. And the entire cities are that size. These are big pieces of ice, said Luke Copeland, a glaciologist at University of Ottawa, who is part of the research team studying. And I did find his Twitter today, actually. And I found some interesting glaciologists today on Twitter, whilst playing in between researching and trying to learn things as fast as I can to help because I it's new. The glaciers are new for me. The learning about the glaciers. So they said it shrunk 80 square kilometers. By comparison, the island of Manhattan in New York covers roughly 60 square kilometers. Wow.
Right.
It was big.
So
holy shit.
Essentially, 1.5 Manhattan Islands dissolved.
Yeah.
Suddenly in 48 hours. Think about it. Think
Wow.
about how amazing this is. And yeah, there's probably been a lot of lead up in
What
that
we
the
are living
ice has been
through.
softening and the ice has been getting rotten and full of moulins and lakes and all
Oh
sorts of
my God.
permeations. But then when it came right down to it, it took just 48 hours to completely dissolve. 1.5 Manhattan Islands.
It's like
Think about
Twilight
it.
Zone stuff, Jen. Isn't it?
It's really like Twilight Zone stuff.
It
It's
is. Holy crap.
totally like
What do you guys
Twilight
think
Zone
out
stuff.
there in the
This is
chat?
like one of those horrible
Hi,
movies, like
Poppy.
Hollywood terror movies, except it's real life.
We
You
got some
know,
talkers out
listen to
there.
this, guys.
Yeah.
This was the largest remaining intact ice shelf, and it disintegrated
This is huge.
basically.
And nobody knows. Like, people are at Sturgis riding their motorcycles without
No.
masks and partying and gonna, infect the United States. But nobody realizes how important this is. This is a big one.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah,
a big
it's
one.
huge. And then they finish it and they say the Arctic has been warming at twice the global rate for the last 30 years due to a process known as Arctic amplification, which we talk about pretty much every show.
Yeah.
But this year, temperatures in the polar regions have been intense, as we've been talking about. The polar sea ice hit its lowest extent for July in 40 years. In 40 years that
40 years.
they've been measuring it. They've only had
Yeah,
satellite measurements. They misstated it. It's not like 40 years ago the shelf was a little smaller, but then it built up over the last 40 years. That's more badly stated.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, sorry,
Billy boy.
Piggy.
I
Record heat and
there's-
wildfires
Oh,
have
sorry.
scorched Siberian Russia. So that's another thing.
Oh.
These things are going on.
Yeah.
Summer in the Canadian Arctic this year in particular has been 5 degrees Celsius above the 30-year average.
Wow.
It says threaten smaller ice caps like we just talked about, guys,
Yep.
which can melt quickly, as we've seen, really quickly. Now they're gone, gone, because they do not have the bulk of the glaciers to stay cold. As the ice
Right.
disappears, more bedrock is exposed. That's also a feedback, right? Dark bedrock heats up, which then heats up and accelerates the melting process. So this whole thing is all about self-reinforcing feedbacks. Yeah, more or less in runaway now, right? I'd say, right?
Jennifer, 3
The
years
very
ago, we
small
weren't
ones,
saying that. We weren't saying
Yeah.
it was runaway 3 years ago, were we?
Well, everything is getting so hot now and so much faster. And now, like,
Yeah.
the North Pole is probably going to be opening up. The ice shelves are gone. The ice caps are gone. Everything is happening very, very quickly now. So what they say, the small ones, we're losing them dramatically. Basically, that's talking about the ice sheets, sinking island, chasing these features. The ice shelf collapse. I mean, I didn't need to read all that. On Ellesmere Island also meant the loss of the northern hemisphere's last known epichelf lake. This is
Dang.
the northern hemisphere's last known epichelf lake. What is an epichelf lake, you might ask? Pray tell. A geographic feature in which a body of fresh water is dammed by ice, the ice shelf, and
it's
floats atop
Whoosh.
ocean water. So
Everything's
kind of
whooshing.
a freshwater lake within the ocean sort of
Oh my
thing, right?
gosh. How interesting.
And it's
Jennifer.
gone. That was like the last one because it dissolved.
In the entire world? Wow.
In the entire northern hemisphere, that was the last one.
Well, yeah. Yeah. Northern
Now we're going to
Hemisphere.
learn all sorts of strange terms, no doubt.
Hey, Rick Larson.
Now listen to this, guys. Listen to this. This is straight from the National Snow and Ice Data Center. We saw them going like someone with terminal cancer. It was only a matter of time, said Mark Cerise of Boulder, Colorado. Yay, Boulder.
Boulder.
Yay, Boulder.
Boulder. Hey, interview.
Yeah.
Interview.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah.
He says, when I was there in the 1980s, I knew every square inch of those ice caps. You have memories like it's your girlfriend. Now that's weird to say. Only an
Well,
ice scientist could say that and think
right.
it was
He's an ice
that was like
science. Yeah.
seriously weird thing to say. That's not normal. Ice
Well,
caps are not like
scientists
your
are
girlfriend, guys.
scientists.
They're just not. Meanwhile, another two ice caps on Ellesmere's called
That's good.
Murray and Simmons are also diminishing and are likely to disappear within 10 years.
Oh,
Okay.
with every little laugh, then there's a groan. Everything. You can laugh at something, but then you have to groan 2 seconds later
It's
because
sad.
it's
It's
yeah.
really sad. I mean,
But
you can get kind of sort of a little
caught
bit
up.
immune because you look
Yeah.
at the news so much, but then
Yeah.
you stand back. I think it's really sad.
But
No, this is like historic. We are
of
living
course,
historic.
that's why I like that Margaret Klein Solomon vet Jen, and she wrote this book, and we need to get her on because she's the one from the climate mobilization. So while we're falling apart, there's a plan to help. Maybe soften the blow. Interesting. Very
Yeah.
interesting people out there, Jen. All right. Now,
Yeah.
like Deb Orzarka, we're going to have her on soon. Holy shit.
Absolutely. And we have a very special secret guest coming up next week. And we're not going to tell you any more than that. All I'm saying is please tune in for our next week's Sunday Night Live. You will like it.
Yeah, man. I will agree. That's our little taste of plug to come back because really we have a something that I think everybody will be pretty happy with. And we'll all learn from. And that's my little take for that one. So what do we want to do next, Jen?
Well, what we want to talk about next, we've been really focusing on the Northern Hemisphere, in particular the Arctic and Canada, and how everything is melting down. It's time to take a look at the Southern Hemisphere and Antarctica and see what's happening with the Antarctic glaciers in particular. So this is an article that came out in the independent.co.uk, and it came out July 9th. So basically today. Okay, so this just came out today, hot off the press. And
Today's August.
same things happening in Antarctica. Enormous Antarctic glacier on brink of collapse could raise sea levels by 0.5 meter alone.
More
Scientists
good news.
warn. Oh dear.
Oh dear.
Oh dear. Says ice sheet may reach a tipping point where it becomes unstoppable driver of sea level rise. Well, it's always been unstoppable,
Oh my
It's
gosh.
always
I
stoppable.
hate those ads. Can you guys hear that ad?
I had to close something suddenly because it started annoying me. It started
Yeah.
playing spontaneously.
Guys,
And I was
can you
like, oh
hear
my
that
God,
ad?
where's that sound coming from?
It's an ad. This is the
So-
independent, so they're low budget. Or not low budget.
Yeah, they have
they're
pop-ups
the
all over the place.
The British New York Post. Okay. Let's pull it back up
Yeah.
and see if we hear any of this.
Right. So this article that's in the Independent is about the Thwaites Glacier, and that is an enormous glacier about the size of Florida, and it's on the brink of melting so quickly that it could cause catastrophic global sea level rise. Scientists warned.
You don't want to look at those guys.
Scary stuff.
Yeah, it's
you know,
scary stuff.
Well, the climate crisis has seen temperatures soar and rapidly reduce ice levels in the Arctic. Down in the Antarctic, far larger ice sheets containing much more water are now believed to be at significant risk of collapse despite previously being considered stable. This is a familiar story, guys. The Thwaites Glacier is one of 5 recently identified unstable Antarctic glaciers, which have doubled their rate of ice loss in just 6 years. Covers 70,000 square miles, not small, likely to accelerate its flow into the ocean, this study found, basically. And the whole ice sheet and its stability is at risk. Well, it's happening right now. Once it passes a tipping point, we talk about tipping points on pretty much every single show. Once it passes a tipping point, it will become an unstoppable process, which could raise sea levels at a much higher rate than previously estimated. Where have I heard this before?
That's every article, and nobody's putting the dots together.
Where have I heard this before? Every single article this week is faster than expected, higher rate than previously estimated. Scientists are shocked. Shocked, I tell you. Shocked.
Oh, my God.
Oh, gosh.
This is like...
So... Let's read the worst case scenario, because so far everything is mapping to the worst case scenario.
Yes,
everything, every single thing has always mapped to the worst case scenario, because people can't expect it. It's too psychologically damaging. In the worst case scenario, the ice from the Thwaites Glacier alone could raise global sea levels by as much as half a meter, that's 20 inches, in as little as 150 years. Well, longer than a human lifetime, but still, think about it. That's one glacier they're talking about. They're not talking about all the other glaciers. This is a single glacier source. So they've warned that once a tipping point is reached, even if global temperatures were reduced, the glacier flow into the sea would already be unstoppable. This is what we've been talking about. These tipping points are very serious deals. And this is kind of where we're at right now, and humanity at large is beginning to contend with this. If you trigger this instability, you don't need to continue to force the ice sheet by cranking up the temperatures. It will keep going all by itself. And that's the worry. Well, I would say that's the reality, said the leader of this thing. Climate variations will still be important after that tipping point, because they will determine how fast the ice will move. Well, you can pretty much guarantee that it's going to move faster than expected, and people will be shocked, I tell you. After reaching the tipping point, the Thwaites Glacier could lose all of its ice in a period of 150 years. That would make for sea level rise of about half a meter. So that's another person saying basically the same thing. So sea level rise from this one glacier that's about the size of Florida is coming our way soon, I guess. I don't know what to say. Let's talk about how much ice Antarctica holds, because that's just one glacier. Antarctica holds vast quantities of ice, about 90% of all ice in the world. Unlike the Arctic, most of the ice is out of the water, because of course there's a giant continent there called Antarctica, covered with ice. And the average thickness of the ice in Antarctica is 1.6 miles. At its thickest point, the ice sheet is almost 3 miles deep. Put your head around it. It's amazing, right?
Yes. I'm looking for a graphic.
It's just incredible. As a result, the collapse of its ice sheets presents more serious future scenarios for sea level rise. While the Arctic, 90% of the ice is in the an iceberg's mast is already underwater. The ice that's in the Arctic, it's not going to raise sea level. It does something else though.
They have
Ah,
in the Antarctic, the southernmost continent. I just grabbed this picture because it's so cute of the little emperor penguins. Do you see it, Jen?
oh, really?
Yeah,
I can't see because
we're
I'm
in a
not
lag.
in that modality.
We're in a lag. So,
Well, no, yeah, I can't see it because they're in a lag. I do see our thing. Oh yeah, now I see it. I see
yeah,
it. See,
and it's exactly
that's how
what you were.
far the lag is.
Yeah, I know it's terrible, and I can't do much about that either. But
Yeah.
well, I might be able to if we get the help. But see, this is
You know,
saying
and
exactly what you were.
there's just one more thing that we want to talk about with Antarctica because it's very important. It's about the grounding line. With all these big ice shelves, there's grounding
Yeah.
line. That's where the bottom of the ice sheet rests on the sea floor. And in deeper areas, the ice over the seafloor can move faster due to water giving it more lift.
More
And this can
lift.
speed up the movement of the glacier. So it just kind of like lifts it up a little bit and it helps lubes it up.
Oops, it
Once
up.
the ice, once ice is past the grounding line and just over water, it's contributing to sea level rise because buoyancy is holding it up more than it was. The ice flows into the floating ice shelf and melts or breaks off as icebergs. So the process is self-perpetuating.
Yeah.
So
So,
that's what's happening in Antarctica. There's a lot more heat and a lot more movement in those huge and giant glaciers that make up the ice shelves and glaciers of the southern continent.
Jennifer, you know how there
Yeah,
are shipping routes in the Arctic and northern Arctic. Are there any shipping routes in Antarctica yet as sophisticated as what's up in the Arctic
I
now that people are chomping at the
I
bit?
don't think that it's advantageous
No,
to have
not yet.
shipping routes that come close to the ice because, for one thing, Antarctica as a continent is never going to go ice free. Like, you're never going to,
Right.
it's not ocean. And the other thing, there's a lot less land in the southern hemisphere. Most of land and most of civilization is in the northern hemisphere. In the southern hemisphere, we have first and foremost, New Zealand, because I happen to
Yes.
be a New Zealand fan. Australia,
Oh, we have a video, remember?
Indonesia,
We have the Bhutan
South America.
video.
I mean, that's basically it. And also to note, the water around the Antarctic, there's a gyre. There's a really strong current that goes down there, and it's hard to whip your boat around in that. So I
Yeah.
don't think that Antarctica is on any shipping routes. And also, there's something else to notice, and that's that the actual sea ice extent
Yeah.
in Antarctica gets a little bit bigger. Do you know why it gets a little bit bigger? Because all that ice is piling out of the interior
Oh my
of the
God.
continent
You can
and
visualize that.
into and making slightly bigger sea level or sea ice extent right around Antarctica.
Hmm.
And then people look at that and they say, oh, see, ha ha
Everything's
ha, you're
fine.
so stupid. There's no global warming. Look at that. There's more sea ice extent in Antarctica than last year. You know, people who are ignorant and who are denialists of various stripes like to use stupid arguments like that. It's not true.
Oh, I hear
So there
you.
you go.
There you go.
There you go.
I know. Okay,
There you
well, I
go.
want to learn more about Antarctica. And that's why I asked you that particular question because there's one continent I have not gotten to do my geological research on. There's just such a plethora of topics to learn
Yeah.
all the time. All the time. So
Yeah.
where are we at? We have the video from
Well,
Bhutan. Remember?
oh, okay.
And
Or, oh,
we
goody. Do you have that? Are you going to play
Yes,
that?
it's queued up, and I thought we would do that for the end of the
Oh,
show. If
it's
you
so
want to,
cute.
do you want
I
to talk a
love
little about your
Bhutan.
trip, and then we'll play this little
Oh,
video?
sure. Oh,
Okay.
sure. Well,
Okay.
Bhutan is a beautiful, innocent, glorious Himalayan, Shangri-La, unspoiled, consciously intact,
Wow.
beautiful little country.
Yeah.
I went there for a couple of weeks, got a very special tour there with my Lama, Rinpoche, and he took me
Ricochet?
to all the secret places. Yeah, he took not Ricochet. No, not Ricochet, Rinpoche.
Oh,
And he took me
Rinpoche.
to Rinpoche, not Ricochet. It's different.
Rinpoche.
Rinpoche, it's basically a title, right, in
Yeah.
Buddhism.
Okay.
But I won't go into all of that. But, he took us to all the great places, and I just came away from Bhutan completely reinvigorated and cleansed and renewed,
That's very
because
cool.
it's such a beautiful place and the people are so loving. And I got to see some really beautiful secret shrines up and away, places that Westerners hadn't actually been before. But my Lama, being Bhutanese and having grown up in the monasteries there, had the inside track. So
Wow.
I did get to go to Bhutan, and I absolutely love it. It's just a joy. And they are carbon negative. One of the only countries in the world that is carbon negative. And they're covered by about 75% forest in the Himalayas. So
Gotta
with
be
that
beautiful.
preamble.
Well, I looked at your pictures too. Maybe
Oh,
one of
did
our
ya?
shows, yeah, on Facebook, but maybe one of
Yeah.
our shows we could show some of them here to this audience. I
Oh,
mean, you've
yeah.
had a really
They're
interesting
charming.
life and you've been to interesting places and you know, why not? These pictures should be cherished and shown. And it was an
Yeah,
experience you had.
absolutely.
So I would love to do that and share. Maybe we'll have a sharing show one night. And if anybody wants to
Yeah.
send us pictures of anything, like we'll put up your pictures too. You know, we want to look for some spice in our doom. Right, Chad. Oh, okay. Well, we have a video for you. And but we're gonna come back after it. We're gonna play it. We'll be back to say goodnight. I'm going to play it right now.
These glacial lakes are located in the high up in the mountains. So therefore, these due to the accelerated warming, this lake can be breached anytime. So therefore, we consider this as a tsunami in the sky. So it can breach at any time and bring a huge consequences downstream.
It concerns us a lot because from spiritual point of view, it's not just a pool of water, lake. No, spiritually we believe that there's life in it. We respect that, and environmentally it's a fact that we are losing our glaciers to global warming to the extent of 20-30 meters on annual basis, and then this glacial outburst we have had few in the past. And there are impending lakes that can burst anytime. So we are on constant threat. And that is the most unfair part.
they are worried. They are worried, and they know the glacial lake is going to burst at any time because of the global warming. Temperature is increasing, and then now the glacial lakes are melting. So they are worried, and at the same time, we are also prepared.
But there's nothing much we can do because we're a small country. Bhutan, we have done our best by being where we are today. Yet, when we have to face this, that is the irony of life. I find it totally unfair.
Oh, that was cool. All right. We are back. That was cool. We're back to say good night. We've had a pretty good show. My computer slipped. We had a great show, Jen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It was a good show tonight.
How you guys doing out in the chat? Did you like the video on Bhutan? It was interesting. I thought so. Hoople's cat liked it. He says, cool video. Cool. All right, great. So, now that we've covered the glaciers and Antarctica and the Arctic, what are we going to do for next week? We have a surprise.
I don't know, Sandy.
We have a surprise.
I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. We'll just have to wait and see what happens.
That's right. That's right. All right, everybody. Well, thank you for coming, Jen.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody, for coming. And be sure to come on back next week for our special guest.
Uh-huh. It's going to be good. I can't wait. I'm excited. Okay. I'm not going to keep my excitement anymore. I'm playing the closing video. Peace out, guys. Thank you so much. We love you. Bye.
Peace out.